Well, good morning, Willowbrook. Thank you for joining us for our daily Devo. Today, we start the New Testament. Kind of an exciting time. Matter of fact, maybe you fell behind a little bit in the Old Testament. Make the challenge to be here 5 days a week, to be part of the Devo as we finish out the year. And I would even say, maybe this is a time to reach out to someone and say, hey, listen, our church is doing a daily Devo. Why don't you join us? We started with Matthew chapter 1 today. It has a video, you read a chapter, you'll be encouraged. And maybe you'll get some more people to join us for our daily Devo. But today we start in Matthew. Matthew, the first book of the New Testament. And Matthew was a disciple, and his audience, we know, were Jews. It's who that letter was circulated with. It was written with the Jews in mind. It has more Old Testament quotes than any other of the Gospels, more referring to the Old Testament for fulfillment of prophecy, which would be so important to the Jew. And even as we'll look at the genealogy now, it starts at Abraham. Abraham was the father of the nation and was the most reverent, the most revered, I should say, the most important Jew there was. And so we think about in the Old Testament, they were looking forward to the time of the Messiah, for when God would come and bring the one who would buy back, the one who would redeem them. And then there was the New Testament we're looking at now that they were living at the time Christ was on earth, in the birth of the church. And now we look back 2,000 years later, and that is the pivotal, the center is Christ. But understand, it started in the Old Testament when God chose Abraham, a man, and from that man he creates a nation that grows to millions and millions of people. And then he follows through a tribe and through a family and ultimately to a man, Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, who is the Messiah. And it's kind of at that point. But what happens in the New Testament, as we know, once Christ dies, it's not a message just for the Jew. But it expands to it again now goes to encompass and reach not just a nation of millions, but a world of billions. And that good news, that hope is what we still share today. Now, if you look at chapter 1, because that's the chapter we're looking at, it has first the genealogies, and it's so easy to skip that, and we don't know those people, but it was important to the Jews to know that lineage of Christ, where he came from. But I think there's two names that really stand out. The first is Rahab. Rahab, remember, was a prostitute. She hid the spies when they were in Jericho, and so they were able to escape. And because of that, she wasn't killed, but she was allowed to join the nation of Israel, which was great. But she didn't just end up in the nation, she ended up in the lineage of Christ. I mean, I'm just thinking of that young Jewish man who comes home and says, Mom, I'm so excited, I found my wife. And she names 10 wonderful Jewish women that she knows. And he goes, no, Rahab. And she goes, Rahab, no. And yet it was showing God's grace, not just his grace, but that it wasn't exclusively to the Jew. And then 2 lineages later, he mentions Ruth, someone that was from a nation that they weren't supposed to intermarry, and she comes back and she's in the lineage of Christ. And I think Matthew's preparing the Jews to understand that this is not just for the Jew, that yes, he was a Jew, and yes, he died for Jews, but he died for the world. And guys, that's the hope we have, that Christ came, he lived, he died for the world. Our sin is a problem. There's nothing we can do to be right with God, but we can allow his righteousness to be placed on us as our sin is placed on him. What a great exchange. And we're going to be learning about that as we continue to go through our New Testament challenge. Thank you so much for joining us. Just double down to say, I'm getting through all of these chapters for the rest of this year. I'm going to have a great run to the end of December. And guys, thank you so much for being part of the Daily Devo.